The Supreme Wisdom, Solution to the So-Called Black God's Problems by Elijah Muhammad. Introduction by Mr. Abdul Basit Naim. It is with pleasure that I am writing these few lines of introduction of Mr. Elijah Muhammad, the author of this book. Mr. Elijah Muhammad is the leader and spiritual head of several thousand Muslims in the United States of America, all of whom are of African descent and converts from Christianity. Muslims, my apologies. While Mr. Elijah Muhammad's Muslim movement has no special name, its members are generally known as the Temple of Islam. People for that is what their house of worship or instruction is called. The Temple of Islam, there are at present over 20 such temples in the United States. In the states of New York, Michigan, Illinois, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia, and Ohio, and in the District of Columbia. Again, one take Drake, no perfectionism, no none of that. I'll be reading this book to the best of my abilities. The book has a different font. Along with the font, I know that the way I read and some of the terminology that is used then is off kilt. I know that they use mausoleum in place of Muslim sometimes, but I believe a mausoleum is a place as well. But I know when they say that thing, if you hear me say mausoleum or I stumble over something, I'm more than likely saying Muslim. Mr. Elijah Muhammad's movement is also known for its highly successful and smart business enterprises around the country, which include farms, apartment houses, restaurants, grocery stores, and bakeries. A number of Mr. Elijah Muhammad's followers own and operate a variety of businesses, such as barber and shoe repair shops and dry cleaning plants. Another one of his members is going to be having a landscaping company, and a book company, and a podcast, and whatever else I probably would end up thinking about by the time I leave the library today. In Mr. Elijah Muhammad's words, and as confirmed by many U.S. Muslim authorities, the Muslim movement, of which he is the head of, is the fastest growing Muslim religion body in North America. Dozens of men and women are said to join its ranks each month. My apologies for pausing so many times during just the introduction, but if you get this book yourself, I implement like my own words throughout. So sometimes I don't want to say Muslim, I'll say Muslim. I could be wrong in saying that, and at other points in time I'll do that, and I could be wrong at saying that then. So just be aware of that if you plan on reading along yourselves and you get lost while I'm saying something different. Mr. Elijah Muhammad is the only Muslim leader in this country I know of who is actively engaged through his writings. He writes a column each week in the Pittsburgh Courier, which has a national circulation of nearly 200,000 copies per issue, in temples of Islam and its members and seeking converts to Islam. Others, at least so it seems to me, are only interested in defending Islam or preaching Muslim Christian brotherhood. In the opinion of Mr. Elijah Muhammad, this is no time to think of anyone other than our own, especially when the Holy Quran itself in chapter 5, line 44 speaks against friendship with Christians as well as Jews. Mr. Elijah Muhammad, again, is the only Muslim leader in this country who has paid some attention to the educational problems of his people. The University of Islam in Chicago, which Mr. Elijah Muhammad founded a few years ago, and which now has more than 200 students on its roll, is an outstanding example of his accomplishments in its direction and an everlasting tribute to his leadership. I am, of course, fully aware of the fact that some of the teachings of Mr. Elijah Muhammad, which have been included in this book, would not be acceptable to Muslims in the East without perhaps some sort of explanation by the author or someone who can interpret them well. The Muslim leader himself knows this, and he is perfectly frank about it. As he told me a few months ago, my brothers in the East were never subject to conditions of slavery and systematic brainwashing by the slave masters for as long as a period of time as my people here were subjected. I cannot therefore blame them if they differ with me in certain interpretations of the message of Islam. In fact, I do not even expect them to understand some of the things I say unto my people here. As far as I'm concerned, I consider the differences between Islam of the East and teachings of Mr. Elijah Muhammad to be of relatively minor importance at the time, because these are not related to the spirit of Islam, which I am sure is completely shared by all of us. A Muslim from Pakistan, Indonesia, Iran, or Egypt only has to meet some of Mr. Elijah Muhammad's followers to be convinced of their love, utmost devotion, and passion for all that is the true Islamic spirit. Sure. Not many of Mr. Elijah Muhammad's followers have had the opportunity to read and understand the Holy Quran or fully comprehend the concept of Muslim prayers, fasting, zakat, and the instruction of Hajj. However, I am in a position to say most authoritatively that Muslims under the leadership of Mr. Muhammad have now begun to make a serious study of Allah's divine word and to grasp its true meaning. Very soon, I can further state, they will also start receiving instruction in the daily prayers and other Islamic duties. I know of what I have just said in the preceding paragraph because I am the humble individual through whom Mr. Elijah Muhammad's followers are obtaining their copies of the Holy Quran and other Islamic and other Islamic literature. And I know that they have already acquired more copies of the Holy Quran than might be in the possession of all the other Muslims in the United States. The spirit of Islam, which prevails in the heart of each of Mr. Elijah Muhammad's followers, can also be judged by the attention that he or she pays to such important aspects of life as food and clothing. A follower of Mr. Elijah Muhammad will never eat outside of his home except in a Muslim-owned restaurant. Members of the temples of Islam never touch pork, ham, bacon, lard, or any other filth forbidden by Allah. They do not take intoxicants or any type, and they do not even smoke, and most of them are known to eat but only one meal a day. As for clothing, men and women who are members of the Temple of Islam in the United States wear only Muslim-style garb. The women are especially careful in the selection of their clothes. They do not permit themselves to be attracted by the latest trends in fashion, which can only suit the beast. The followers of Islam under the guidance of Mr. Elijah Muhammad do not go dancing, dating, or nightclubbing, nor do they participate or attend any other function or activity that is unlawful in the eyes of Allah and Islam. Small wonder, then, that some of the Eastern Muslims in America who do not faithfully observe the divine restrictions do not appreciate Mr. Elijah Muhammad's mission and achievements. Despite Mr. Elijah Muhammad's blunt techniques and a few controversial teachings about certain aspects of Islam, I have nothing but the utmost respect for the Muslim leader. I do indeed appreciate his efforts to bring the black people of America back into the fold of Islam, which is, in his opinion, as in mine, is the only solution to their basic problems. Islam alone undoubtedly will evaluate the status of those among the so-called Negroes in America who are downtrodden and in a pitiable mental condition. I believe that the so-called Negroes need Allah and his religion of peace, justice, and equality, Islam. Islam can and will give them a new life and assurance of seeing the hereafter. Americans of African descent, I believe, should be grateful that the message of Allah has at least been brought to them through the person of the author of this book, Mr. Elijah Muhammad. That concludes the introduction. Not only does it conclude the introduction, but